alive. I'm alive. Alright, guys, let's go over the calendar. You guys can see that. Let me turn on some light. Hey, Two-Face. Oh, I know, buddy. It's hard being a Two-Face. I know, pal. I know. Okay, guys, so, as per the university, we do not have class Friday. Hey, big boy. We do not have class Friday for Good Friday, and we do not have class or assignments all Easter break, meaning that I can't give you anything new. I can ask that you guys study, that you guys review, that kind of stuff. But I cannot ask you guys to watch a new lecture or do any assignments, that kind of stuff. So I have this calendar up here to show you that no class here, so I'm not going to be uploading a new lecture for you guys because I can't. And then all this week, no class. And then we get to when we do have class. Okay, so we have class here, one more lecture on Monday, one more lecture Wednesday, one more lecture Friday. Then we'll do a review live session where you guys, I'll meet at 7:30 class time, and I'll be here for clarification, questions, or, I mean, I guess it depends. If there's anything I need to wrap up, I'll wrap up. And then here is your test on the 29th. Most of you will be satisfied with your grade. Some of you will want to take your cumulative. I might rethink this because I don't want people to think that the cumulative final is going to, be able to catapult you to, if you have a C and I really want an A. Yeah, I wanted A's too, but I didn't make A's. So I'm thinking that the cumulative final now is going to be an actual final where you'd take another test. Reason being is you only took, you have 2 tests. And don't forget that, well, you have 3 grades in the semester. You have your first exam grade, you're going to have your lecture confirmation grade, and you're going to have a second exam grade. So getting another cumulative exam in there, I think, is important. So I'm going to modify that and email it out to you guys that your cumulative final will be an exam type. And it could hurt or it can help you. So that way you can kind of decide if you want to take the final. So that's our schedule, man. So this is going to be the last time I see you for a lecture in a while. I will do the promised YouTube live session where you guys can comment in the comments, like think of it as office hours. I'll do that for you guys. All right. So let's get to the brass tacks of today. And that is a bunch of, whoa, my son's iPad. All right, this is all kinds of stuff you're going to need to know. Let me find a photo. All right, so let's start off with an exercise, shall we? Let's do this exercise. So machine curls. External force trying to cause what at the elbow? Extension. What group of muscles do I need to play tug of war against it? Elbow flexors. If I observe flexion, elbow flexors are going to be working concentrically. If I observe extension, elbow flexors are going to be working eccentrically. Another way of saying that is, if I observe motion away from anatomical position, elbow flexors are going to be working concentrically. If I observe motion towards anatomical position, elbow flexors are going to be working eccentrically. If I observe no motion at all, like in this position, elbow flexors working isometrically. Either way, elbow flexors are going to be working because the machine is trying to extend me. Now let's go deeper in the rabbit hole. This exercise is going to be made up of phases. So yes, there's going to be periods of flexion and there's going to be periods of extension, but I can look at that in more detail. The flexion is going to include speeding up the flexion, constant speed of the flexion, slowing down the flexion. Reset it. The extension, when he reaches the end of his motion and he goes back down, extension is going to be speeding up extension, constant speed of extension, slowing down extension. Okay? There's going to be 2 points of change in direction here. When his hands are closer to his shoulders and when his hands are further away from his shoulders. That's when he has change in direction. So in those periods, there's going to be a sequence. You're going to go from concentric to eccentric at the top, and then you're going to go from eccentric to concentric at the bottom. It's important to understand that the plyometric sequence of the muscle is when you change direction. When you go from moving one way to moving the other, the plyometric sequence of the muscles is when you change direction and you have eccentric followed by concentric. That's important. So where is the plyometric sequence of the muscles in this exercise? Where are the muscles working more than the weight? That is at the bottom, slowing down extension because of eccentric, followed by speeding up flexion via concentric. That's the change in direction, eccentric followed by concentric. That's where the muscles, you're doing more. So in other words, if the weight stack said 50 pounds, that's actually where you're doing more than 50 pounds because you have to do more in order to slow it down one way and then speed it up the other. Why are these plyometric sequences important? One, I told you that it's important to know that within ranges of motion, where your muscles are working more, where they're working the same, and where they're working less. But in addition, the plyometric sequence is where the damage comes from when you're doing exercises. That's where the delayed onset muscle soreness and the micro damage of the elastic properties happen. It's at the plyometric sequence part. That's why you don't really want to do, for beginners, you don't want to do plyometrical kind of exercises because they're going to rip their muscles apart, be sore, painful, and maybe they are more likely to discontinue exercise. You want to gradually build up, right? You don't want to start them off. That's kind of a misnomer because a lot of times young personal trainers, they want to show that their training session had an effect, right? They want to show that they worked you out. And one of the ways, long term, it's hard because these adaptations take time. Time and patience, big boy. That's my cat Two-Face. And so the problem is that you'll work somebody too hard and maybe do some plyometrical exercises, like box jumps, and these real dynamic exercises. And the next day, the person that you're training can't get up. They're hurting so bad. And sometimes young personal trainers take it as a badge of honor. Like, yeah, I made them hurt. But these people, like, I ain't going to do that again. I can't even function. I got to be able to get my kids up, and I got to be able to move around the house. I need to be able to water the plants. I need to be able to bathe. I can't even move my arms. So it ends up having an adverse effect, where the dropout percentage is a lot higher if you work them too hard too soon. Okay, so knowing where those muscles are being stressed in certain windows of exercises is of importance. So on the test, if I asked you, same exercise, the curls, if I said identify which of the following identifies the plyometric sequence of this exercise. Which of the following terms? So slowing down extension, putting on the brakes of extension through eccentric work, immediately followed by speeding up the flexion because of concentric work. So let's think about what it wouldn't be. Slowing down the extension because of concentric, speeding up the flexion because of eccentric. Okay, you see how this works? So slowing down the extension because of eccentric immediately by speeding up the flexion. And again, if you do a thought experiment, if you were doing curls, where in that exercise would it feel the toughest? Right? Not at the top. And you think about, this is easy up here. You get a chance to take a break. Right? So you can always do kind of a thought experiment to visualize where it's easier or where it's tougher. Okay? And those are the kind of questions I'm going to ask. Let's go to another exercise. Same concepts, different exercise. Okay? Same concepts, different exercise. Let's go. Good Lord, my wife loves Pinterest. My wife loves Pinterest, and my son loves his cat Purry. Okay, let's see. Curls. All right, guys. So today's code word for the lecture is Happy Easter. Happy Easter to you guys. Hope you enjoy your break. Okay, let's go to this one. Okay, I'm going to give you a second. You can pause it or go back to it, so that way I don't have to keep it up. But so first thing I'm going to do before I talk all this mumbo jumbo about contractions and work and plyometrics, I'm going to establish who needs to be working. The padding is pushing on the shin, trying to flex the knees. The last thing I need are knee flexors, because then my knee flexors would just pull my shins away from the padding, defeating the purpose of the machine. I need my knee extensors. Dr. Campbell, why don't you just say the quads? Because we need consistency here. If we're going to say radial ulna pronator, supinator, shoulder flexors, shoulder extensors, scapula elevators, depressors, we need to be consistent. So we're going to say the knee extensors, and then we could say, hey, that's the quads. But then you say, what are the quads? Vastus medialis, lateralis, intermedius, rectus, femoris. So that takes way too many syllables. So for this class, we just keep everything consistent. The knee extensors are working. Now in this position, if she's just holding it here for the picture, I know that they are working. They are doing a job with isometric contraction, isometric work. Remember, contraction doesn't mean shortening. Contraction means trying to shorten. So those muscles are doing a job above rest to try to shorten. They are being balanced by a force trying to flex. So those two forces cancel each other out, and you get a balanced forces, and you maintain that position. Okay. Now, what if I told you from this position you observe motion away from anatomical position? Away from anatomical. Well, away from anatomical would be knee flexion, right? Because she'd have to extend to go back home. So if she has motion away from anatomical position, knee extensors are working, because you still have something trying to flex you. Knee extensors working, but I observe flexion. That must be eccentric work. From this position, from this picture, if I say she starts moving towards anatomical, you know that's knee extension, knee extensors, knee extension, concentric work. Okay. Now let's get into plyometric sequences, or we can get into the different phases, right? So let's say she's going to fluctuate between speeding up flexion, constant speed of flexion, slow down flexion, speed up extension. What if I asked our concept questions this way? Where in that exercise is her effort the least? In other words, where is it the easiest? And then where is her effort the greatest? Where is it the hardest? And I'll use layman's terms like at the top or at the bottom. Okay, so looking at this exercise, you know there's going to be a point where her feet are going to be at its highest point, and you're going to know there's a point where the feet are going to be at the lowest point. So is her effort through her muscles the greatest at the highest point of her feet or the lowest point of her feet? Pause it if you need to think about it for a second. Pause the video if you need to think about it for a second. Her effort is going to be the greatest at the lowest point. Why? Well, because that's when her muscles have to be greater than the weight to slow down the flexion through eccentric work and then to speed up the extension through concentric work. There's my plyometric sequence. In other words, once she gets that son of a gun moving up, once she starts to extend the knees and gets that momentum up, gravity can slow down her extension and speed up her flexion. She doesn't need muscles to do that. Now, her muscles are still working above resting tone because she wants to control the speed of which gravity can do those things. But the top part is the easy part. The bottom part, assuming or inferring she does not clang the weights, she's not a clanger. In other words, if she changes direction strictly on her muscle effort, that's when life's going to be the toughest. She has to change direction because of her muscles, not because of gravity. She has to change direction because of eccentric work followed by concentric work. Okay? So I could also ask, where is it the easiest? That's at the top. That's when the weight has its plyometric sequence where it's going to be greatest, slowing down the extension, speeding up the flexion. Now, our next exercise shows you that it's not about your body position. It's not about these global references of up and down. It's about what the machine's trying to do to you. We've had this one before. Same exact position, except instead of the padding trying to flex you, the padding is pushing on the back of the shin and it's trying to extend you. So I am no longer using my knee extensors. I am now using my knee flexors. Campbell, why don't you just say the hamstrings? Well, because there's 7 major muscles back there helping you out, and the hamstrings are 3 of them. That's not very fair to just give credit to 3 of the 7. And no one usually ever says what the hamstrings are. Big syllable words, semimembranosus, semitendinosus, biceps femoris, both head short and long. But the point is that it's a concept that if all we ever do is identify 1, 2 muscles that are working, we lose focus that there's other muscles. I use the example of cocoa, where if you never talk about it, it doesn't exist. So these concepts are not only easy to talk about, easy to explain, but they remind us that no muscle is working by itself. They're all part of a family that pull in certain directions. So detective work, who's working? Knee flexors. How are they working? Well, to just maintain this position, they would be doing an isometric job, isometric contraction job. If you observe motion that goes back to anatomical position, how would they be working? Well, going back to anatomical, I would observe knee extension. So if the knee flexors are working during knee extension, it must be eccentric work. And if I observe motion away from anatomical position, that's going to be knee flexion. Knee flexors, knee flexion, concentric work. Where is the plyometric sequence of my knee flexors? Well, that's when my feet are going to be at the top, specifically slowing down the knee extension through eccentric, immediately followed by speeding up the knee flexion, concentric. That's when your muscles are going to be working more than the weight. That's when you're actually doing more than the plates. Cool. All right. So if you guys get to watch this, I have a couple more examples. If you guys get to watch this at 7:30, I guess, or 8:30. As per my email, I'm going to be coming back today, Wednesday, April 8th, and doing another YouTube live, kind of like office hours, where you guys get to come in and ask me questions, and then I can clarify it on the video. And I'll save it to my channel so that way y'all can watch it. All right, let's cut to the chase and just get to plyometric sequence, okay? So let's pretend that she always has her muscles engaged, meaning that she's not going to bring it all the way down. She's always going to have it where external force is trying to cause motion. Always going to engage the motion. So she's not going to bring it all the way back to anatomical. She's going to have it out in front of her a little bit at all times to make sure those muscles stay engaged, okay? So let's first identify which group of muscles she'll be working. External force trying to extend her shoulders. She needs flexors, shoulder flexors specifically, okay? If you observe motion towards anatomical, that's going to be shoulder extension, flexors, shoulder extension, eccentric work. She goes away from anatomical. In these two pictures, you're going to observe flexion, shoulder flexors, flexion, concentric work. Where's the plyometric sequence? Are the dumbbells at the top or the dumbbells at the bottom? Plyometric sequence of her shoulder flexors is going to be slowing down extension through eccentric work, immediately followed by speeding up flexion with concentric work. Where does that take place? At the bottom. Let's think about it at the top. When you change direction at the top, that's this one. Think about what's happening. You're slowing down flexion and then speeding up extension. Well, the slowing down the flexion, if you have your flexors on, your equation says that's concentric. So slowing down the flexion is still having concentric work. So who's slowing down those dumbbells? Gravity. Who's speeding up those dumbbells? Gravity. Your muscles are letting gravity be greater. You're letting off of the pull of the contraction of magnitude to let gravity slow you down and speed you up. Okay. Who's greater than who if I maintain a constant speed? Nobody. They tie. Another way to look at this concept is, let's say I'm flexing, right? I'm going up. Let me reboot it. I'm going up. The only way I can maintain the same speed of going up is if I have the same amount of force from my muscles as I do the weight. And how do I know that? Well, if my muscles continued to be greater, I would continue to speed up. I'd keep getting faster and faster and faster. And if my muscles started pulling less than the weight, I would start to slow down. I'd get slower and slower and slower. The only way to maintain the same speed is to tie, to balance. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Same motions, different muscles. Remember, we do not associate muscles with motion. Same motion, different muscles. And we've all had these before. That's why I'm using them. External force is now trying to flex you, not extend you. So I need shoulder extensors. From left to right, concentric, right to left, eccentric. Where is my plyometric sequence for my extensors? Slowing down the flexion because of eccentric work, immediately followed by speeding up the extension because of concentric work. Change in direction with eccentric followed by concentric. That's happening when my hands are at the highest point. Make sense? Okay. So what I'd love for you guys to do is, after you watch this lecture before our office hour class, maybe come up with some examples on your own. Remember, all of this is about exercises. When we get back from the Easter break, that's when I'm going to go into exceptions, like when you're trying to do as many jumping jacks as you can, or when you're trying to hit a hammer. Sometimes you need to go faster than what gravity can offer. Therefore, you need muscles that pull in the same direction as gravity. And if you have muscles that pull in the same direction as gravity, your acceleration, your change in speed is going to be very high. You're going to make it go real fast when you're actually moving in the same direction as gravity, or you're going to slow it down real quick if you're going in the opposite direction of gravity. Okay. So that'll do it for today, guys. We'll see you during my office hours. I posted that on Ulink, so you should have got a message about when I'm going to be meeting with you guys today. So come ready with questions, and you guys don't forget, Happy Easter. Happy Easter. Later.